Most people do not want to talk about this, but we've had a couple viewers specifically request this video, and I want to make sure all of your questions are answered. So today we are going to talk about wildfires in the Spokane area, what you should expect, how they're going to affect you, and so much more. So let's get to it. My name is Sarah Haywood. I am here with the Living in Spokane WA and PNW Dream Homes team. And this is kind of an uncomfortable video topic. Most people do not like to think about disasters when they think about the place that they're going to be moving, especially if you are a realtor. But the reality is you probably have questions if you're considering moving to the Spokane area. So let's make sure you understand what's going on. I want to give it to you straight, so we're going to get right into it. No matter where you live in the world, wildfires are becoming more and more common. Now, if you live in the Pacific or inland Northwest, this is pretty common. I'm talking like every single summer at this point. Now, I think most of us know forest fires are a natural part of a forest ecology. It's actually good for the forest. But the fires that have been occurring in recent years have been somewhat catastrophic. In fact, my own home was affected by wildfires last year, and it was a pretty scary occurrence. But whether you believe in global warming or government conspiracy, it is now a reality of living in the inland or the Pacific Northwest. And part of that reality is 90% of wildfires are caused by humans. And unfortunately, it is hard to prevent human error. Now, how does that relate to Spokane? Well, about 70% of Washington's historical wildfires have happened in eastern Washington. That's because we have a pretty dry climate over here, about 50% less precipitation per year than the Seattle area, and lots of rural land. Now, historically, most of these fires have been relatively small and easy to manage. On top of that, we have our northern sister Canada that does actually get a lot of wildfires each summer, and they just let those burn. In fact, we are so used to wildfire smoke in our area, most local people here will joke that we have a fifth season, and it is called the smoke season. This season usually starts in mid-August, and it lasts to about mid-September, and most of the time this smoke is caused by fires outside of Spokane. I say most of the time because we have had instances in the Spokane area where these fires hit a little too close to home. It made major national news when two wildfires broke out in Spokane County on the exact same day in August 2023. The Gray Fire and the Oregon Fire, both in Spokane County, started after multiple days of 100+ degree weather, and both were ultimately found to be caused by humans. Now, these fires completely taxed our local fire safety infrastructure. State and federal resources did step in to help contain and ultimately stop these fires, but not without first causing major damage. The two fires burned a combined 20,000+ acres of land and over 350 homes. In fact, my house was in one of the fire evacuation zones. Now, luckily, we were not close enough to actually have any fire in our area, but it was still a pretty scary occurrence to go through. The reality is these fires happened in somewhat rural areas. The Gray Fire in Medical Lake, which is about 20 to 25 minutes outside of Spokane, and the Oregon Fire north of Spokane in Elk, which is in a pretty rural area. That combined with the hot, dry, windy weather made it harder for resources to effectively put out these fires. Now, one of the cool things, I guess you could say, to see about this was how quickly the community came together to support the people who were affected by these fires, on top of how quickly our local emergency services were able to act. I know everyone here in our local community is incredibly grateful for all the efforts put in by the Spokane County Fire Department and Police Department, on top of everyone at the state level who stepped in to help. And seeing the community come together, not just for people solely affected by the fires, but all the people who wanted to help, was incredibly powerful. I know my own clients who were affected by the fires in Medical Lake who lost everything, received so much support from their local community and the resources we were able to gather while finding them a new home. So All of that happened, but what does that mean for you? Well, if you are someone who is considering moving to the Spokane area, and I definitely think you should, one of the things you might want to take into consideration is the type of property that you want. Are you someone who wants to live in the city, close to amenities and major services? Or are you someone who wants more of a country, rural living experience, which we happen to have an abundance of? If the latter is you might take on more risk by living in the country than you would living in the city. That's because those emergency services are not necessarily going to be as easily accessible as they would within the city limits. Now, as a property owner, there are absolutely things you can do to help protect your property. Making sure to landscape your homestead appropriately and keeping your property clean of any fuels, as well as having things like perimeter sprinklers, fire lines, or wildfire sprinklers can make all of the difference. Now, even with all of that, you might run into trouble getting insured. This has been a reality for a lot of rural properties and even some not so rural properties in recent months after the fires. People are either having trouble obtaining insurance policies or seeing increased premiums. Now, this can be due to all kinds of reasons, but most commonly you will see it because of the condition of the home, whether it be having an old roof or a road that is not easily accessible, to things like the type of property, maybe being an older manufactured home. The last one is actually something I've dealt with a couple different times since the fires had happened. Because insurance companies decided to switch up their underwriting policies after the fires, people who had previously had insurance and put their homes up for sale were encountering buyers who could no longer obtain insurance on these properties. Now, luckily for my clients, I was able to get them in touch with the Washington Fair Insurance Plan. That is where the state of Washington will step in to help insure your property if you are unable to obtain insurance through any of the major private insurers, which is another reason you want to make sure you are talking to a local insurance agent. I'm talking about someone who knows the area and who won't be afraid to drive up and take some pictures of the property if they need to. Don't worry. If you need that person, I have plenty of contacts. Now, aside from potential insurance issues, the fire season is a real thing, and you will find in the warmer months fire restrictions are put in place. These fire bans need to be respected. If you have any confusion about fire bans in your local area and what you should be doing, there are plenty of online resources you can look to make sure you are following all the best practices. You can find some of those links in the description below. Another thing to consider is for holidays like the 4th of July, looking into community events where you can watch things like firework displays instead of doing your own fireworks at home. Everyone has to do their part to ensure we have a good summer season free of wildfires, because the smoke season is a real thing. I am talking about air quality. Whether the fires are happening locally in the inland northwest or up north to our sisters up in Canada, the chances of the Spokane area experiencing the smoke from those fires is pretty high. That's because we sit perfectly in a valley that funnels the smoke down, and it just likes to settle where we're at. So you'll find during fire season, the air quality in the area is definitely not going to be good. I personally have felt it affect my health, but if you're local to the Pacific Northwest at all, this is not something that's new, unfortunately. The best practice is to stay indoors, and if you have an air conditioner, make sure to utilize that. And you'll always be able to check the air index on apps like your weather app or other places online. And of course, let's not forget you need to change your furnace's air filters. It makes a huge difference. I recommend doing it every season. Now, one of the good things is that the County of Spokane and the other surrounding counties recognize what a big deal fire safety is, and they are pushing for infrastructure projects to improve our local emergency services. And programs like Wildfire Ready Neighbors help provide resources on top of apps like Watch Duty that can help you stay on top of wildfires that might be in your area. Now, the most important part of living in an area that might have fires is to be prepared. Make sure your home is properly insured with enough coverage to cover you if something like a wildfire were to occur. Now, this might not be as common in the city of Spokane itself, but if you live in a rural area, you're definitely going to want to make sure this coverage is going to be enough. And top priority is to make sure you have a fire-ready plan for your household. It can be as simple as having a go bag in a meeting location to a more elaborate system put together that is specific to your household. Now, wildfires. It's not a very fun topic, but at the end of the day, it is all a part of living in such a beautiful area like the Pacific and inland Northwest. Being in a community that was so closely affected by wildfires showed me that yes, it is something that can be scary, but it is also something that can be overcome and bring a community together and make it even stronger. It's all about being prepared. This is a video I definitely wanted to make because I love the Spokane area and I know it is a big question on a lot of people's minds. Speaking of, if you have questions about living in the Spokane area or anywhere in the Pacific or inland Northwest, make sure to leave a comment below or reach out to us through one of the other links. My name is Sarah Haywood. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications, and I will see you next time.